Susan Graham White has been no stranger to many of us, releasing several albums during the late 90s and early 2000s. But then, just like a light switch had been turned off, the music stopped. Silence prevailed for years, leaving many people questioning what happened to Susan Graham White. Having been a friend to her for years, I didn't know either. It wasn't until a few months ago that we had that conversation again, the one I had many times before. Where's the music, Susan? But this time, she answered me.
So very suddenly, I lost the hearing in my left ear, literally within seconds.
Join me for the next hour as Susan shares this incredible story and her road back to the recording studio, as well as songs from her first album in over 15 years called Lost Art on FM Odyssey.
An anchor, I was cast in angry sea, dragged along the sandbar. I would hold my injuries, and I kept them in harbor, and my life was rough. Then I heard the stress of the steel, the groan of the weight, the hard metal squeal, the snap of the chain. Now I've come to know the sound of letting go. A prison, I had locks on every door. I kept my wounds in iron, the captives of my war. And I stood like a fortress, and my life. Then I heard the stress of the steel, the groan of the weight, the hard metal squeal, the snap of the chain. Now I've come to know the sound of letting go.
Susan Graham-White is my guest today on FM Odyssey. Susan, it has been so long since we've been together on the radio, 15 years since your last album, and it's so nice to have you here. And also the fact that you brought along with you some new music. How are you today?
I'm doing great, and I'm so happy to be back, and wonderful to hear your voice and be a part of FM Odyssey again.
Well, I'm excited to have you back too. It's nice it's like old times on the radio with Susan Graham-White. That last song that we just listened to, called Anchor, is the first song on the new record called Lost Art. And I'd really like if you'd share your story of why the absence for over 15 years.
Well, I had something happen years ago where, unusual situation, I was literally just sitting on the couch watching TV with my husband, and I suddenly felt this sort of a ringing in my left ear and then this funny sound, and it was like somebody just turned a knob and turned off the sound. I can't describe it any other way than that. And I was sitting there and I said to my husband, wow, something's happening with my ear, and I feel like something's funny. And as it turns out, I had what they call sudden sensory hearing loss, which is something that happens. The doctors don't really know exactly what causes it. They think it might be viral related, sort of like the same virus that affects you if you have shingles or something like that. Anyway, it affects the nerve in your ear. And so very suddenly, I lost the hearing in my left ear, literally within seconds. When that happened, it just started this series of events that, treatments and, all these things to try and help it that didn't work, a lot of different things, and then dealing with not just the loss of the hearing on one side, but also tremendous tinnitus that came into that ear as my brain sort of tried to figure out what was going on. And it was a very hard time. It was just such a huge adjustment time. And I'm sure that anybody that's gone through losing, half of your sense, whether it would be if you were blind in one eye or deaf in one ear, it takes a long time for your body to adjust. And for me, as a musician, it was very difficult to lose my sense of stereo. My right ear hears fine, is very good, and so I didn't have any trouble communicating or really hearing the world, but I no longer heard in stereo. Plus, I had some tinnitus that I had to just deal with all the time. So it was a huge change in my life that, was depressing, was just a very hard adjustment. I think probably more so being a musician than it would have been otherwise. And I spent a lot of time outside with my horses, my animals, where I felt like I could actually, outside was when the tinnitus was the least. It was worse when I was in enclosed quarters, and it was worse when I was in noisy situations. So being out of doors with my animals was actually the best place, the most comfortable place for me. And so I just stepped back from the music. It took me a long, long time to feel like I thought I could even do it. So, moving ahead all those years, my dear friend Dusty Rose, who also now has produced this wonderful new album, contacted me and through a series of events got me back into the studio. And I had told him about my hearing problem. And thankfully, he worked with me, was able to help me adjust with it to studio work through some of the technology that they've got now with monitors and things. It's very doable, and it just gave me back my music. It's been a tremendous gift. Even though I didn't perform through that period of time or record, I kept writing because all this music was in my head. I just didn't feel like I could quite get it out to hear it the way I wanted to hear it. So now I have all these songs that I had written, some old ones, some new ones, but all things that now I'm actually getting to actually hear them the way they were in my head.
There's sound all around, I don't hear what you're saying. The back of my mind, there's a soundtrack that's playing. The melody haunts me, it's drawing me closer. The driving refrain turning over and over. I'm closing my eyes, the air passes through me, my heart beating faster, the rhythm consuming. I'm big and I'm small, awakened and sleeping. This time disappears in the energy streaming on. Somebody's calling and wants me to answer. But seems like a dream now, and I'm getting lost in the soundtrack. The ashes in hands that are chosen. What words will be sung? What truths will be spoken? And where are the footsteps that leave the impressions? In sand or on water, in stone or reflection. My memories shatter in beautiful pieces, rising as gravity finally releases. I'm red and I'm blue, my colors are breathing. I'm circling my body, and now I am leaving. Oh, somebody's calling and wants me to answer, but like a dream now. There's sound all around, I don't hear what you say. Somebody's calling and wants me to answer. There's sound all around, I don't hear what you saying. The back of my mind, there's a soundtrack that's playing.
And that is the song Soundtrack from Susan Graham White's new album Lost Art. And so I guess that's the song that you wrote about your sudden hearing loss, right?
Well, yes, I would say that the first, especially the beginning of that when I started writing that song, it was all about basically saying what was going on in my head. So when it talks about I can't hear what you say in the back of my mind, there's a soundtrack that's playing. It's a little bit like what I live with all the time. And then that song transcended. I've got to say that there were pieces of that song that goes around I had an injury also during the last couple of years where I had a little bit of an out-of-body experience kind of thing that I added into that as well.
Well, you know what? It made for a very, very good song. You know, it's a.
Well, thank you. I'll tell you, being a songwriter is always, it's always an adventure, Fred.
It certainly is. From my vantage point of being the gatekeeper for all these years, I totally agree. I totally agree with you 100%. What I really like about this CD is that there's so much variation in the songs. There's stuff where you've literally grown into other places in music that you were not all those years ago. And the fact that you haven't really done this for 15 years, obviously there must have been a growth thing going on subconsciously. So when you went into the studio all these years later, it's like, well, here it is. We're all caught up. All the pieces of me are all caught up here.
Yeah, that's how it felt. It truly did. And it was great to have things that actually, and honestly, I think Soundtrack was actually being written as we were finishing the CD. It was the most recent song that got done. So, yeah, it was really cool. I was able to really go through and say, look, if I'm going to put a song on here, whatever it is, it's going to be what I consider the best that I can do. I was really trying to show songcraft. And I was going to choose songs for that reason and not for the reason of saying, oh, I've got to be commercially this or that, or I've got to do these different things. And then each song needs to be done the way it needs to be done for that song. That's where I think, particularly with this album, I like it so much because I feel like each song, the production in each song represents each song so well. And that was the blessing of working with Dusty, with having a great producer, because he saw that vision too.
The Color of Sin was actually the very first song that I played on FM Odyssey a couple of weeks ago, and it kind of raised a few eyebrows. I like the song. I like the way that you presented it.
You were surprised by that bluesy sound, weren't you?
Slightly, yes. Uh-huh.
I don't know. I've always loved that style of music, and that's one thing that, you know, I've just never been able to fit in that box of being a certain genre of a musician or a songwriter. And I just like writing. So when I have a subject or a feel that just feels right for those words, that's where I'm going to go with it. I really love that song, actually. I just, because I've always wanted to write something in that vein, and I like that style. Luckily, once again, my producer was right there with me with understanding that, hey, I remember when I actually sent it to him, and this was on a little, you know, like I recorded it on my phone from home, just playing the guitar part on it, the finger-picking guitar part. And he got back to me, and I'll never forget. He texted me a little soon. He said, "You wrote a blues song." Like, I'm really surprised. And I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
There's rain on my window. I'm wishing that the morning would drown. Leave me in darkness to find some comfort in the sound. 'Cause love isn't tender, it just keeps letting me down. Tried to believe you, but I can see the color of sin. Your money's like a tattoo seeping under your skin. If I outlive you, you bet I'll be cashing in. Say those words and taste a piece of heaven on your tongue. But time won't be cheated, it's as cold as they come. But try for forgiveness, God knows you're not the only one.
And that is Susan Graham White from her latest album, Lost Art, her first album in 15 years, and the song Color of Sin. Susan, this next song is called California Rain. A lot going on in this song. First of all, you've got Stuart Smith, who's doing classical guitar on this. He, of course, has been the guitarist alongside Joe Walsh and the Eagles since around 2001 when Don Felder left the band. And you've also got a string quartet on this. And if that's not enough, you also have your producer, Dusty Rose, doing a duet of the song with you. Tell me what's happening here.
Well, California Rain was originally just a piano song that I recorded a number of years back. Actually, I did a demo of it that Dusty helped me with some years ago, and that he sang on it with me, did a harmony on it with me. So it sort of started there and then broadened out from there. But it was, I have to say, that one particularly, that was the first song that was recorded for this album, and it was because actually Dusty wanted to record it, hopefully to put on his next CD. He was really the one that had that whole vision for the string part on that and everything. I gotta say, I was just blown away by what he did with it.
Well, interestingly enough, I caught up with Dusty Rose, who is the producer of Susan's new album and also an incredible musician and has been for a very, very long time. And I asked him to share his story about this song, California Rain.
Susan was out for Santa Cruz Guitars playing in San Jose. And at the same time, I was doing a band reunion in Concord, California. And so family of mine and friends went to see Susan. And when that job was done, I asked her if she would come and see me at my thing. And she said, sure. So a couple of days passed, I believe. And then she showed up. I got down off stage. And she and her husband own a log cabin. And they have a fireplace. And so it smells very much like wood and smoke. And so I got down on stage and I went over and I gave her a hug. And when I hugged her, I said, I can smell the cabin. And about 10 minutes later, I looked over in that direction thinking I was going to introduce her to a few of my friends from California. And she was gone. And I had, first thought was, what did I say, right? Because we're both 3,000 miles away from home, what could I have possibly said? So she was gone, and that was the end of that. I finished my gig, and when I came home, eventually I made contact with her. And the story she told me was that she was so homesick that the minute I came over to give her a hug and mentioned home, I put her over the top. She was just so sad and wanted to go home so badly that I put her over the top. And so on her way from Concord to San Jose, which is a fairly long drive, she wrote the song California Rain. So that's how the song came to be. And when, I don't know how much of the story you want to know, but my mother and I had gone to see her and was a fan of hers. And so I had sent a CD out, including a demo that Susan and I made eventually of the song where I did some harmony on it. And when my mom was in hospice, I went back to her house at some point and grabbed stuff, was going through everything, and I found this CD that I had given to my mom. Didn't remember what was on it, but I plopped it into the rental car, and up came California Rain. And of course, at that moment, that was deeply affected me. And so when I got back from that, I gave Susan a call and I said, we have to do California Rain. And she suggested that we do it as a duet. And so that was the birth of the song. And then because of that and the emotional journey with it, she asked me to produce the rest of the CD. So that's how things got started.
Wow. Dusty, thank you so much for sharing that with us. Dusty Rose, who is the producer of Susan Graham White's new album, Lost Art. And now we all have to turn up our radios and listen to this song that Susan Graham White wrote called California Rain. This is Fred Migliore, and you're listening to FM Odyssey.
There's a fever on the land, a shine along the border, where I've drifted like the sand. My roots have come for gone. The sky has no shade, the sun hard as stone, and I am on fire, thirsting for home, and I miss you more than bad. I think I know the pain of the desert as it longs for California rain. All my breath is dry, my tongue a piece of copper. I don't need to wipe my eyes, and every tear is drawn, so I cry like the wind, hollow and low. My voice is a canvas, just stretched to the bone, and I miss you more than bad. Oh, I think I know the pain of the desert as it longs for California rain. And I miss you more than bad. And I think I know the pain of the desert as it longs for California rain.
It's so nice to have Susan Graham White back, and her new album is called Lost Art. It's available at cdbaby.com and wherever else that you get CDs from. We're going to take a very short break here, and we will be back with the second part of my interview with Susan. If you'd like to email me with your comments or requests, you can always go to my website, fmodyssey.com.